Well, Neil, you said that maybe one and potentially two might be in for Colchester. How far down that road are you?
I lied. No, I think it's going to be tough now to get them over. We're very, I'd say this touching wood, we're very close to a couple, but at some clubs, the people that you're dealing with, it has to go through two more people to get everything okayed, and because we're travelling tomorrow morning to go up and we're training down in Colchester, it's to get it all in time for somebody to join us for training to be part of the squad's proving to be a little bit difficult. So that may not be something that can happen, and a big but, I'd be very, very hopeful that we could have a couple in next week and get all week to train with them.
I assume it's more difficult to get players in early in the transfer window as well, with other clubs not having their plans formulated yet.
Yeah, but my aim is, I sort of set myself a 10-day to 2-week, try and get everything done within that. I didn't want anything going into the last week of January because, I feel like we need to pick up points a lot sooner rather than later, and our situation's, a lot more imminent than some clubs might be. So, with the injuries we've had and whatnot, I think a fresh face or two can give everything a lift, and it can certainly start pushing us the right way, hopefully.
How vital is this transfer window going to be to the club, do you think?
I think it's going to be the sort of be all and the end all. I think I've got total faith in my ability as manager and my staff's abilities to do the right things from now till the end of the season. I think we need a lift. I think some fresh faces will do that, some different personalities will, and I think I'd like to think by February the 1st we're going to be in a lot better position. But the important thing is, the thing we need to understand, we've got 4 games between now and then, and we can't afford to keep dropping points.
Are we kind of talking about a whole new team, or kind of 4 or 5, with 4 or 5 staying in from the current team? We're
talking about trying to add a few. I can't give an exact number. I know what I'd like to bring in, whether we can get there or not, because there's got to be some ins and outs. But we're talking about a few, and we're talking about different sort of characters and different qualities. Some might be a little bit younger and athletic, and others might be a little bit more older and with a little bit more of a voice. And so we're just trying to profile and bring them right types in and get them in the right positions on the pitch, and along with getting the injuries back, your players, your Kanes and your Elliot Hewitts and your Enzios and Louis Alessandro, you get them back and you add in some players, all of a sudden things might look a little bit rosier.
And have you got the go-ahead from the chairman to expand the budget a little bit in the short term if you need to get players in before players go out?
I just haven't asked him. I just thought if I just did it, he might not notice. So no, he, obviously, the chairman's got knots at heart, and he's put so much into trying to make it a success. And this wonderful industry we're in, football, never quite works out how you want it to, no matter how much you put into it. So he understands that we do need to work well and try and make this January a success both ways. I understand that, so we haven't got fortunes, but we need to, there might be a slight outlay and we need to try and work in and out, but initially we need to get in and then work the other part out as we go along.
2 players who have been linked with moves away are Elliot Hewitt and Matt Tootle. Are they likely to go, possible to go in January?
I don't know anything about Tootle. I think that might just be paper talk. Elliot, there was some interest earlier on pre-Christmas, but that interest seems to have died. So, I'm planning that he'll be around and a part of what we're trying to do here.
This weekend it's Colchester away, who've not had the greatest of Christmas after a very decent season so far.
Good team, really good stadium, really good setup. I've been to their training ground, and they're a club that do a lot of things right. So, like I say, they've had a really strong start to the season. I've watched quite a bit of their games. They've had a tough Christmas, similar to ourselves, results-wise. It's hard to, you look at the opposition, you want to make sure you give yourself the best chance of winning the game. But at the moment, as we've shown in our inconsistency in our games, it has to be about us, because if we get Grimsby and Oldham's type energy levels and performance and focus, we won't beat anyone. And if we get the Bury and the second half at Macclesfield and the Tranmere type performances, then we can beat anyone. So the hardest part for me is not worrying about the opposition, but actually trying to get us to turn up with our performance levels where they need to be.
I guess there's nothing you can do about that much. Is there, as a manager, you just have to kind of, at the moment, stand there and accept it? It's
tough. I mean, you work really hard during the week to get a performance. Everything's about the levels of the performance. I think if you get them right, you give yourself a better chance of winning games of football. And the thing that's frustrated me as a manager is, you think you have your Tranmere performance and you think, you then look at Grimsby away, you know what type of game it's going to be, what you're going to need to do well. You get the players geared up for it. It's part of your prep, your team talk, and then you watch as we go out and don't turn up, so to think, and that's frustrating because you want to try and get back-to-back good performances and wins. And then the same again, I personally feel like we dropped 5 points over Christmas. I thought the second half at Macclesfield, as bad as the first half was, the second half we got back to 1-1 and had 3 1v1s. And I think them moments, you go and get your second goal, you probably go and win that game. I thought Bury, we thoroughly deserved to win, and Steady's penalty miss obviously would have made a difference. So all of a sudden you could be looking differently, and then you only got a point from them games, and then you go to Oldham away and you get a performance that lacked energy. But with the injuries we've got and having to churn the same team out week in, week out, perhaps that was I looked at the stats of the players and they were covering 11k at Bury and probably only 9 and a bit on average at Oldham. So physically we just couldn't do the second game.
Where are you this weekend, injury-wise?
We're hoping we've got 1, maybe 2 back. They'll be having fitness tests in the morning. We're travelling down and we'll train in the afternoon. So we're hoping there might be a couple back. One certainly. And as I say, with getting ins, there's a couple that we were hoping we might be able to get in before tomorrow that look like they're more likely going to be next week now. So watch this space, I suppose.
Top man. Thank you.
Neil, can I ask you about one of the players that you have been linked with, and I think people have been two and two together with AFC Wimbledon, Liam Trotter? Is he a player that would interest you?
I like Trots. He's a very, very good player, but he's not one that I feel in our situation is one that I'm prioritising. I think the qualities we need in this team, in this squad, are probably slightly different from his.
Yeah. When you sit down with players, given the club's position in the table, have you noticed the difficulties in trying to tempt players here, given the position in the league?
It is a problem, but I had the similar one at Wimbledon. People didn't want to join bottom of 92nd out of 92nd. A lot of the feedback I do get is, Notts, great club if you can get it going, so everyone kind of feels the same way, they say the same thing, so that gives you a slight advantage. But still, we're trying to go for really good quality players, and sometimes, if we went through a profile and we all sat here and said together, what do you think we need, we'd all probably come up with similar profiles. And then if I said, right, you've got no chance of finding that where we are and no chance of finding that, so you have to work within the parameters of what you can get given where we are.
In terms of the players, how are they after Oldham, and have you had to pick them up?
I think you always have to pick them up after a defeat, but before you can pick them up, you have to pick yourself up. So
has it been difficult for you though? I mean, because obviously I imagine you wanted to have come in and sort of had that instant bounce like everyone had seen, but it's been so tough, isn't it?
Yeah, really tough. And as a manager, it's hard not to, I don't know what the word is, probably just not look at yourself and say, come on, what you're not doing right, what you got wrong, and keep that belief in yourself as a manager that you can do the right things. And like I say, when I first took over in this situation 6 years ago, I was a rabbit in the headlights. So there was, it was like, wow, this time round I've been through it several times, and I've got an idea what works and what doesn't work, but there's always different challenges at different clubs. And here, we've tried to put some belief in the boys and make the system quite clear on how we play, but we still conceded poor goals and lost games. We've tried to shore things up a little bit and give a bit of security, but we've still conceded poor goals and missed our chances. And I suppose the positives I can take, even in the Oldham game where we lacked a little bit of the energy and zip we had, I thought we still created some really good chances. And there hasn't been a game, maybe, even the Grimsby game we did, I just feel we've had one-on-ones, we've had moments in games where they could change. We've just got to make sure that doesn't become a bit of a sob story that costs us.
I mean, you talk about those chances. Have you been working on that with the players in terms of finding a bit composure in front of goal?
We did early on. It's been really difficult over Christmas because we've literally gone, you know, the sessions have had to be light because the players, like we say, we've got loads of injuries, and then we've got the squad we've got is bare bones, and then they're tired because they've been turned out 4 times in 12 days. So we've just been trying to manage their loads, because the most important thing, you know, there's loads of ways of getting tactics across, showing them how to play and what we need. There's loads of different ways of doing that, but if they haven't got the energy or they're too tired to carry out them instructions, you know, it's pointless anyway. So the main thing is that they're fresh and ready to run hard on Saturday, and then we can kind of work at ways to make sure. And then, as I say, from after Saturday on, we get 4 weeks to get everything right.
Why do you think Notts have picked up so many injuries this season?
Probably, and I don't like doing this because it talks about previous regimes, but there is, you know, and the sports scientists will back me up. I think right the way from pre-season onwards, I think they had some challenges with the training ground and the lack of water on the pitches, and they couldn't overwork them. They were very hard and tough and undulating. So I think pre-season had to end up being not quite what it should have been, and that's then coming in the intensity in training. Perhaps different managers do different things different ways, and the way I want to try and play is at a higher intensity. But like I say, them stats have already changed. We've already made a difference there, but maybe the accumulation of so many games has caught up with a few.
Jaded.
Yeah, and you get cumulative fatigue, and then, you know, maybe Elliot Hewitt's groin, and, you know, Jamie Turley, and before you know it, you're picking up niggles, and them players are having to miss games. But like I say, you know, if I look at the first game I had and the 2 games previous, you know, as a team we were covering 96, 97k on our stats. You know, our last 4 or 5 games we've covered 107, 108, 110, 108, I think, and then Oldham was probably one of the lower ones at sort of 104. So we've already increased them, and maybe that increase in workload has fatigued the players in between games. But you have to, like I said before, you have to start somewhere. You can either sit in and not run hard and just say, well, this is all we've got in us, or you can start the process. You might pick up a niggle or 2 along the way, but eventually the aim is second half of the season we're capable of doing it.
Thank you.
After the game on New Year's against Oldham, you said that you weren't too happy with the response that your players showed. How frustrating is it having worked so hard on the training pitch with them?
I think it's frustrating, but it's sometimes when you don't know how to win games, you don't know how to win games, or you've lost the knack of knowing how to win games. And like I say, belief. If you've got loads of goals in you, you know, and you go 1-0 down, you believe that just keep going, we'll score, don't worry. And sometimes that's not there, and the first thought is, oh, here we go again. And that's the bit that's hard, because I can stand on the side and gee everyone up and keep driving them forward and change the shape and push more players forward, but they've got to believe in it, they've got to commit to it. And when I say about the response, that's the bit that I find frustrating, is that we go 1-0 down and we need to then go, come on, we can do this. You know, even though it hasn't happened too often, we still need to believe and commit to it. And that's the bit I thought maybe the legs, maybe the energy wasn't there to do that.
Do you think that's what's missing at the moment, and why not find themselves in this position, that belief's just not there?
Perhaps, but ultimately I don't think the stats really lie. The reason we're in this position is we've conceded nearly 50 odd goals, and can't win games of football. If you're conceding 2 a game, the chances are you're not going to win more than 4 games. You're not going to score 3 goals that often to win. You know, so we know where the problems lie, and like I say, we've come in, we've worked really hard on the defending, on stopping crosses if we can, defending crosses, and no matter what we've done on the training field, and it's still, you know, set pieces, things have still reared their ugly heads. And the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, and you can do the work, and you can do the video work, and you can coach the sessions. And I've done videos where I've even shown them, remember that training session, that's this in a game, remember that's this in a game, and the moments that have cost us games, and these were the training sessions we put on. And ultimately over Christmas we've had very limited training time because of the game load, so we need to get to January and get back on that field with a few fresh faces and go again.
You mentioned that about fresh faces. Just how crucial are January signings?
Of course they are. You know, even if we set out to try and get 5 or 6 and only got 2 would be a big difference. And it's the 2 you bring in and the qualities they bring, and you know. But I won't stop. You know, I think I've watched about 200 players over the last. You know, going through all the stuff. I've got a lot of people trying to help me. A lot of people in the game who I've got on well with, and that are busting their. You know, their stuff for me, to use my words wisely. They're busting their stuff for me, trying to make sure that they, you know, they help us out as much as they can, and you know, we're working really hard to try and bring the right types in.
And is it across the whole pitch that you're looking to strengthen, or have you identified 1 or 2 areas in particular?
I think there's areas, you know, of the pitch. There's different types for different areas. You know, you can't always get the qualities you want in one position, so you go, well, we'll go for that type in that position, and we put this around them and this side of them to try and a bit of know-how there or a bit of that, and you try and profile and bring in the types. You know, listen, we need borderline playoff form from now at the end of the season to try and get a 50-odd points. So, you know, and I remember having this conversation in my first year at Wimbledon with one of the directors on New Year's Eve, and he was like, oh wow. And it's the same, it's deja vu for me, and I will do everything in my power to try and get that momentum and get that mentality to carry us through. One thing I do believe is that this will go down to probably the last 3 games of the season.
But can you do it?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt we can do it, but we need to start getting some movement, certainly on the points totals quickly.
And just touching back on the transfers, I think we've mentioned it already, but are you confident that the backing's there to bring new players in, or will we have to see some players leave the club first to make room?
No, I think we'll bring new players in and then work on the rest, and I think that's the only way we can do it, because needs must is we need players through the door, and then maybe 1 or 2 we'll look and go, okay, probably time to move on, and we'll work from there. And like I say, I don't treat people poorly. I'll work with them, and we'll try and get it right so that it's good for them and the club and everything. But I've done this before, and hopefully I can get it right.
And following the Christmas and New Year period, what's the mood been like with the players at the moment?
It's tough. Christmas is always a strange period. You forget what day it is. I think we all do that, don't we? Is it Saturday or Friday? So you forget what day it is. And the games have come. You know, this has been a tough schedule. Normally you might get the odd time where you get 4 or 5 days between a game. Now this time it's been every 3. You know, I think we've had every 3rd game for 3 games now, and that's been tough. This one's for the fourth day for this game, so that extra day might help us. But yeah, it's been tough, and like I say, we get through to the Colchester game. We'll try and be as hard working and as competitive as we can at Colchester, and then try and give ourselves something to build on for the rest of January.
Speaking of that game, what kind of game are you expecting there?
It's hard because Colchester have had a blip, and they've been very good. So you know, I'm sure it won't last. They play, you know, nice open game at home. They try and make the pitch big, and they've got some really good players. There's 1 or 2 I looked at in the summer for League One anyway. So I know that they've got qualities. It's the same old thing. We're going to have to defend well. We're going to have to be organised. We're going to have to work incredibly hard. And the boys that go out on that pitch have got to do all 3 things of them, and they can do it. They've shown it. Tranmere, they showed it second half. Macclesfield, they showed it at Bury. So we need performances like that, and we can do it.
You said there that Colchester are in a bit of a blip at the moment. Could it be a good time to play?
Oh, I never know. Sometimes you get the reaction or the RAF. Sometimes, you know, they can be in good form and get too cocky. You never know. I think anyone on their day can beat anyone. And like I said, it's hard for me to focus on Tranmere. I'll know what they're capable of and the way they try and play and the system they might play. You know, I'll be aware of all of that. But if I can't get our team to perform Bury like and Tranmere like, then we'll struggle against most teams. Thank you.
Very game, we obviously went into that one as sort of underdogs. It's a similar sort of feel for Colchester. You're sort of looking to get the same sort of reaction from them. I think we're underdogs in every game, aren't we? Every time I look at the betting, we're like 4-1 against compared to the opposition 6-4 on. That's where we are at the moment, and the bookies
don't normally get it wrong. You know, they do their homework and whatever. The only thing I will say is in a lot of our recent games, our expected goals, which is a guide, I know, but it gives you a guide of where you are. Expected goals has been miles better. You know, we've like I say, we should have beat Tranmere, we did. We should have beat Macclesfield on expected goals, we didn't. We should have beaten Bury. We were closer to Oldham than the scoreline suggests. So, you know, we're just trying to get them stats in our favour. We can't worry about whether we're underdogs or we're not. Like I say, we've got to put in a performance that's high in energy, that's high in focus, that's very focused on its defending, that takes its chances, that's got composure. You know, we need to focus on us, and if we get them things right, we can beat anyone.